It was the kind of rain that made the gutters gurgle and the streetlights smear their golden glow across puddled sidewalks. In the small town of Elmridge, nestled between a forgotten railway line and dense groves of whispering pines, the storm seemed to cleanse the silence. The townspeople had long gone inside, windows glowing warmly in contrast to the dreary streets. But in one narrow alley, tucked between a bakery and an old thrift shop that smelled of mothballs and lavender, something stirred. A heap of soggy newspaper trembled as a small, skeletal figure shifted beneath it. Two golden eyes blinked out from the shadows, catching the shimmer of the rain. It was a kitten, starved, soaked, and utterly alone. He had no name, no home, only the faint memory of warmth from a long-lost mother and the harsh lessons of surviving among trash cans and angry alley dogs. Every sound was a threat, every moment a challenge, and tonight, the cold bit deeper than usual. The kitten curled tighter under his paper-thin shelter, a tremor in his tiny body with each crack of thunder. At that very moment, two brothers, 10-year-old Evan and 8-year-old Max, were trudging home from their grandmother's house, splashing through puddles under a shared umbrella. Their sneakers squeaked with each step, and Max was humming a made-up tune about pirates and jelly beans. "Come on, Max. We're gonna catch pneumonia," Evan said, pulling his brother faster. "But look," Max pointed to the alley. "Did you see that? Something moved." Evan squinted. Lightning flashed, revealing the faint outline of a creature huddled against the dumpster. "Probably a rat," Evan muttered, but curiosity tugged at him. The boys crept closer, the umbrella forgotten as the rain soaked their jackets. Max gasped. "It's a kitty." What they saw made their hearts clench. The kitten, barely more than bones wrapped in fur, looked up with wary eyes. It didn't move, too weak to run. Max knelt down, his voice a whisper. "Hey there, little guy. Are you okay?" The kitten gave a faint meow, so soft it was almost lost in the rain. "We can't just leave him," Max said. Evan hesitated. "Mom's gonna freak if we bring home a stray." Max sniffled, partly from the cold, partly from something else. "But he needs us." That was enough. Evan took off his jacket and carefully scooped up the kitten. The poor thing didn't even resist. He was light as a feather and shaking like a leaf. Wrapped in the warmth of the jacket, the kitten closed his eyes. Maybe, for the first time in a long while, he felt safe. The walk home felt longer than ever. Every step was filled with worry. Would the kitten make it? Would Mom understand? They burst through the front door, dripping wet and breathless. Their mom, Claire, was already at the door with a towel in hand, ready to scold them for being soaked to the bone. Her eyes widened when she saw what Evan was carrying. "What in the world?" "Mom, please. We found him in the alley. He's so skinny and cold and he looked at me like he was begging for help," Max said, tears welling up. Claire, a nurse with a heart the size of Texas, took one look at the trembling kitten and her stern expression melted. "All right, get him to the bathroom. We need to warm him up. Evan, grab some towels. Max, start running warm water in the sink, not too hot." The next hour was a blur. The kitten was gently cleaned, dried, and nestled into a box lined with towels and one of Max's old fleece blankets. Claire called the local vet, who thankfully agreed to a late-night emergency check. "He's malnourished, dehydrated, but no broken bones," the vet said after a careful exam. "He's got a fighting chance. You boys did good." They named him Whiskers. It was Max's idea, inspired by the way his long, white whiskers twitched when he slept. The days that followed were full of uncertainty. Whiskers had trouble eating, often coughing after every few bites. He spent most of his time curled up in his box, but each day, he seemed a little stronger. Evan would read to him after school, while Max offered bits of tuna and gently brushed his fur. Claire even rearranged her work schedule so she could check on him during the day. One afternoon, about a week after they found him, something incredible happened. Whiskers pounced. It wasn't graceful. In fact, it was more of a wobbly hop, but he had gone after a string that Max had dangled over the box. The boys cheered like their team had just won the Super Bowl. That night, Whiskers curled up in Evan's lap for the first time. It was the beginning of something magical. But unknown to them, their quiet town had more in store. And Whiskers, the alley kitten with a fighting heart, was about to play a bigger role in their lives than anyone could imagine. Elmridge basked in the glow of a sunny spring morning, the rainstorm of the week before now a distant memory. Birds chirped from the pines that fringed the neighborhood, and the scent of blooming lilacs drifted through open windows. In the small living room of the Walker household, Whiskers sat like a little king atop the armrest of the couch, eyes alert and tail twitching. It had been 3 weeks since Evan and Max found him. His coat was shinier now, and though he still had a bit of a limp in his back leg, he moved with a surprising burst of energy when he played. The boys had crafted a whole world for him. Pillow forts became castles, cardboard boxes transformed into battle tanks, and toys were repurposed as traps or treasure. But Whiskers wasn't just playing. He was training. That's what Max said, anyway. He had decided that Whiskers was secretly a spy cat with ninja powers. Evan rolled his eyes whenever Max whispered into Whiskers' ears like he was decoding a top-secret mission, but even he had to admit, Whiskers had a way of showing up in odd places, almost like he understood more than he should. It started small. One evening, Whiskers darted under Max's bed and came out with a lost toy car they'd been searching for all week. Then he started sitting by the window, growling softly at night. Evan thought it was just stray raccoons in the yard, until the night they heard a thud. Claire was working a night shift. The boys were supposed to be asleep, but Max had snuck a flashlight into his bunk and was whispering to Whiskers. The thud came again, then a crack. "Did you hear that?" Max whispered, flashlight clicking off. "Someone's outside." Evan sat up. "Don't mess around." "I am not," Max hissed. Whiskers is growling. "Look." The kitten, tail puffed up and fur bristling, was perched on the windowsill, staring intently out into the backyard. There was another crack, then a shadow. The boys crept to the window, hearts pounding. At first, all they saw were the trees swaying. Then movement. A tall figure hunched near the fence. Evan's breath caught. "Is he breaking in?" Max clutched Evan's arm. "What do we do?" Whiskers hissed loudly. The shadow paused. Then, to their horror, it turned and crept closer to the window. Evan did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed the baseball bat from under his bed and stood in front of Max. But before he could do anything more, Whiskers leapt. Like a streak of gray lightning, the kitten launched from the sill, darted out through the cracked back door. The boys had forgotten to close it during their earlier backyard game, and vanished into the yard. "Whiskers," Max cried. Evan grabbed his phone and called 911, fingers trembling. Minutes felt like hours. When the police arrived, the backyard was empty, except for the scuffed-up grass and a small, black glove snagged on the fence. And Whiskers, sitting calmly on the porch with a smug twitch of his whiskers and a torn piece of dark fabric in his claws. The officers searched the area but found no one. However, the evidence suggested someone had indeed tried to sneak into the house. "Looks like your little guy might have scared off a burglar," the officer said with a low whistle. Whiskers became a local hero. The town newspaper printed a full-page feature titled, "Feline Fearless, Elmridge Cat Foils Midnight Intruder." The boys couldn't walk down the street without someone asking to meet Whiskers. But Whiskers didn't seem to care much for fame. He was more interested in stocking socks or dozing in the sunbeams that spilled across the floor. Still, Evan noticed something. Whiskers seemed vigilant, like he was guarding them. Always listening, always watching. Then came the dreams. Max started waking up at night, talking about strange lights and whispering voices. Evan dismissed it as overactive imagination, until he started hearing things too. One night, while everyone was asleep, Whiskers stood on the windowsill again, tail flicking like a metronome. Evan followed his gaze. There, far in the woods past the backyard fence, was a glow. Not firelight, not a flashlight, something else. Whiskers let out a low growl. Evan didn't know what it meant. But he had a feeling. This was only the beginning. The next morning, Evan and Max stood at the edge of their backyard, staring into the pine woods. Mist clung to the ground like breath on glass, and the early light filtered through the branches in golden beams. Whiskers was beside them, tail flicking, ears sharp. Neither boy had spoken of the glow they saw in the woods, but they both knew what the other was thinking. "We should go look," Max said quietly. Evan hesitated. It's probably just some weird light reflection. Max turned to him, serious. You saw it too. And Whiskers, he knows something. The cat meowed, low and insistent, before darting through a gap in the fence. Whiskers, they both shouted. There was no choice. They followed. The pine forest behind their house was deeper than it looked. Twisting paths and mossy stones made the place feel like something out of a storybook. But there was a trail now, fresh paw prints and broken branches. They walked for nearly 20 minutes, led by Whiskers' faint cries. Then, through the trees, they saw it. A clearing. And in the center, a large, circular stone with strange markings carved into its surface. Faint blue light pulsed from the grooves like veins of magic. Whiskers sat at the edge, unmoving, eyes locked on the stone. Max stepped closer, breathless. Is it glowing? Evan pulled him back. Wait, something's off. As they watched, a hum filled the air, rising like the sound of a tuning fork. And then, a voice. Not in words, but in feeling. In thoughts. He is the guardian. You brought him to the threshold. The boys froze. Whiskers stood tall, his body suddenly rigid. From the trees stepped a figure, cloaked in green and brown, like a walking shadow of the forest itself. You shouldn't be here, the figure said. Max stood behind Evan, trembling. Who are you? The figure lowered his hood. A man with bark-like skin and eyes like amber stones. I am called Alor. I am one of the wardens. Evan found his voice. What's going on? What is this place? This, Alor said, gesturing to the glowing stone, is a gateway. One of many. And Whiskers is not just a kitten. He is a guardian, reborn. The boys stared at the cat, who now walked toward Alor, tail swaying. Alor continued. Long ago, creatures known as guardians protected the balance between your world and ours. When one dies, it returns in another form, until awakened. Whiskers was drawn to you because you carry light within you. Both of you. Max blinked. Like, chosen ones? Alor smiled. Not chosen. Connected. Suddenly, the wind picked up. The stone flared brighter. You must go, Alor said. This portal is opening. Not all who come through seek peace. Your town is on the edge of something greater. Keep Whiskers close. He will know what to do. Wait, Evan called. Will we see you again? If the balance shifts, Alor said, already fading, you'll know. And then he was gone. The clearing dimmed. The light vanished. The stone went still. Whiskers padded over, brushing against Max's leg. I think, Max whispered, our lives just got a lot weirder. Evan nodded. Yeah, but I'm glad he found us. They walked home in silence, Whiskers at their heels. That night, Whiskers sat on the windowsill, eyes scanning the stars. He was watching, guarding, waiting.